All right, so this is Atlantic Chase, and I'm working on the Vassal module, so I need to really learn how the game plays before I put the module together. Playing a two-player scenario to kind of get a feel for the game. I've gone through the tutorial. There's an extensive, I think like 50-page tutorial that you get with the game that'll interact with the rule book to learn it. And then there is a 60-page solitaire booklet that comes along with this guy with lots of scenarios. The one I was playing was First Test, November 1939. You have the situation of Graf Spee coming up from South America, trying to get home. There's a inbound convoy to the UK coming from the United States and one from Africa. And the Allied player is going to get points for both of those convoys arriving in the UK. You also have Scharnhorst and Gneisenau, two battle cruisers, and they are in port. You also have a pocket battleship Lutzow, light cruiser Köln, and the slow light cruiser Leipzig available to you. So lots and lots of British ships, very few German ships, and that's pretty much order of the day. The only problem is that's a really big ocean in which to find this small number of German ships. So the way the game works is these trajectories, these long lines of stick pieces, those will correlate with a task force display as you see here. And basically when you see a string of those markers on the board, that's just giving you an indication that that particular task force is somewhere in those hexes. And so the game it really is an interesting mechanic in terms of you want to reduce the information down to locate the task force. You can attack it so that you can force it to veer off, change its course, and so forth. And so in this particular scenario, the Germans got pretty fortunate, be able to slip the Graf Spee through in between Iceland and the Scapa Flow. And so they were able to bring her home. That's worth 5 points. The real damage, though, was Scharnhorst and Gneisenau slipped through this gap as well about the same time. They managed to get through into the Atlantic. Now they're harder to track down. They intercepted the inbound convoy from Africa, and they inflicted a tremendous amount of damage on it. In the first round of combat, they inflicted 4 hits between the two of them. Each of them scored both of them scored 2 hits, and each hit is worth 1 point. You're sinking basically merchantmen. And so after that, the convoy dispersed, which means at that point, once it's dispersed, the most you can ever inflict per round is, I think, 1 hit, 1 point. So it doesn't make sense to keep going after that convoy. Damage is done. The dispersed convoy is worth less points when it comes to the UK. So let's get Scharnhorst and Gneisenau home, right? Only problem now is this is pretty tightly shut up here. There is a way to slip them through the channel. Now, there's all these little bases. There's a French task force in this hex, and then you got bases here, here, here. And any one of those hexes, you put a trajectory, put one of those sticks through there, and you're going to get an intel marker, and so it's harder to get your forces through there. I decided to risk it because the weather was poor, and in bad weather, these air bases are useless in terms of doing airstrikes and such. I felt like there's a reasonable chance to get her home quickly that way, rather than risking getting drawn into a surface action up to the north of the British Isles. So, tried that, got into Brest, and then the weather cleared. It's like, oh, no thank you. And we got out of that situation. It's a long story, but the short version is due to some search activities on the part of the Allies, the trajectory markers that were connecting into Wilhelmshaven were removed, so that freed that force to basically try a different route. Once you lay those sticks down, the only way you can get rid of them is through a time-lapse mechanic, and you remove a certain number of them based on the speed of the ships in that convoy. And so you want to be careful about putting down a lot of them at one time. Although the more you have down at one time, the harder it is for them to locate where you're at. So there's this tug and pull between how committed you want to be to a certain course of action. So far, I'm really liking the game. There's a lot to like here, but there's some really new mechanics, and so it's a game that's going to take a little bit more effort to learn, but I think it's one that's well worth the effort. So I hope you enjoyed this little discussion about Atlantic Chase. Look forward to getting that Vassal module into your hands pretty soon here.